as our last speaker, and after he shares, we're again going to have some time for table conversation and another Q&A. So again, on the yellow sheet on your table, if you want to read a little bit more of a bio, you got to share it. There's one piece of paper, not cutting down so many trees. But let me just introduce you to James a bit. James Goddard is the Economic Justice and Healthcare Access Program Director for Nebraska Appleseed. He's been with Appleseed through his internship, progressing through various stages to arrive at his current role. In the meantime, he earned his JD from the Nebraska College of Law and his bachelor's in social work and law from Union College in Lincoln. He also has experience in the Mexico Appleseed Center in Mexico City, Mexico. During his time at Appleseed, he has litigated cases and engaged in policy, advocacy, and media work. Let us welcome James Goddard.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to see such a great turnout this morning. I'm happy to be with you. Again, my name is James Goddard. I'm the Director of the Economic Justice and Healthcare Access Programs at Nebraska Appleseed. I know some folks in the room are familiar with Appleseed, but we are a nonprofit legal advocacy organization, and our mission is to fight for justice and opportunity for all Nebraskans. Can you hear me?
Not really.
I can speak louder.
No, just a little bit out.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So, as I said, some of you are familiar with Appleseed, others may not be, but we are a legal advocacy law firm, and we take a systemic approach to complex issues like healthcare, child welfare, immigration, and anti-poverty work. And what I want to talk with you today a bit about is ways we can make our families and our workforce a bit more stable. I have passed out a report that we issued about a week and a half ago. I think there's one on everyone's table. You don't need to look at it unless you want to, but it's going to give you some additional detail on some of what I'm talking about.
Is it on the website, please?
It is also on our website, and there are a couple. We have some extra copies over here as well if you're interested in digging into it. It's a lot of data, so not everybody loves that, but it definitely tells a story. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that families are the backbone of our state and our workforce, and we have to make sure that families are stable and strong to make sure our community is strong. It's not any news to you, but unfortunately what we're seeing are a lot of families in our state struggling. You can see here almost 1 in 3 working families are low income. We're not talking about folks that might not be employed or might have a disability. We're talking about working families. Are low income, and by low income I mean below 200% of the federal poverty level. You can see in Douglas County about 15% of folks are below the poverty line. So those are some alarming things to think about. The good news is there are a lot of actions that we can take both as individuals, as communities, at our legislature, and in other ways to make sure that folks have earn enough to get by, they have the support that they need, and have access to health care so that they can make sure they're healthy. There are 3 main areas that I want to discuss with you today: economic opportunity, making sure we have a healthy workforce, and economically stable families. So you can see here, we have a lot of folks that are working in our state. I don't think that's a surprise to people in Nebraska. Nebraskans work hard. We have a strong work ethic. We have statewide 3.9%. Douglas County is a bit higher, but you compare that to the national average, and it looks like we're doing pretty well with employment. But the problem is thousands of folks are working in low-wage jobs. And so they're working hard, but they're having trouble getting by. You can see we have about 77,000 folks have more than one job. That may be 3 jobs. So a lot of people working more than one job to try and get by. We also have about 32,000 folks that are earning the minimum wage. That's $7.25 currently. So we have to figure out ways to ensure that hard work pays in our state. As many of you probably heard, Initiative 425 passed the other day. It is, a very significant thing for working families in our state. The fact that it came through a ballot initiative is also really exciting. I can't think of another progressive initiative that has gone through in this way, and I think it received something like 60% of the vote, so it was resoundingly accepted by people in Nebraska, because I think at some level, you just get that $7.25 an hour is not enough. And so this is something to celebrate. It will progressively raise the wage, eventually up to $9 an hour by 2016. So I think this will go a long way to combat poverty, but there's still more work to be done. It's not a silver bullet. Even just thinking about the minimum wage itself, the change does not include servers or waiters and waitresses, and the tipped minimum wage is a big issue. You can see here the poverty rate for servers is 3 times the average for all workers. So when people are relying on tips, we need to make sure there is, in addition to that, a minimum. So I think there may be an opportunity in the legislature even this year for a piece of legislation to raise the tip minimum wage. Not sure if that's going to happen, but I kind of think if you see the voters do what they just did, there's a pretty good argument to say we need to balance this out for everybody. So something to celebrate, but also more work to be done there.
And the tip minimum wage is $2 and something?
That's right, and there was a proposal from Senator Lathrop this session to, I think, make the tipped wage 75% of the minimum wage. So that would be a fairly dramatic increase in your minimum wage for servers. And I haven't heard for sure who was going to introduce a piece of legislation, but I would be surprised if you see 60% of voters saying yes, that there isn't a pretty good argument within the legislature to say let's balance this out. So the second area I want to talk about is making sure we have a healthy workforce. Our economy depends on people being healthy, and for a lot of folks to be healthy, you have to have access to basic health care. Now, the world of health care, unless you've been living under a rock the last couple of years, has really changed. The Affordable Care Act was passed a few years ago, and it went into full effect this year. And what that resulted in was a little over 42,000 Nebraskans enrolling in coverage, many of them for the first time. Many of those folks are enrolling through what's called the healthcare marketplace. You probably heard about some of the problems with that system about a year ago, but what I understand is it's improved. It improved an awful lot as time went on in open enrollment, and it's a lot better now. The next open enrollment period actually starts next week, a week from today, November 15th. So there will be another opportunity for folks that don't have coverage to be able to enroll. But unfortunately, there are thousands of individuals that are not going to get helped through the marketplace. These are people who fall into what many call the coverage gap. And I don't know how familiar people are with this, but it's something I always like to kind of walk through slowly because it defies reason, and that's because it was not created to be this way. So under the Affordable Care Act, people with higher incomes, 100% to 400% of poverty, can go into the healthcare marketplace and they can get help to pay for the cost of insurance. It's called tax subsidies. So they can go in and it's like going onto a website, you want to buy a plane ticket, and you start off with $100 credit right away, and then you buy the product. It's the same thing in the marketplace. Then you have folks that are on traditional Medicaid, but there's a group of people that are left in between that are not eligible for subsidies and they're not eligible for traditional Medicaid. This is what we call the coverage gap, and that's not by design. It's the result of the Supreme Court decision that looked at the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act, and what they said is there's this one coverage area that you can't force states to do, states have to decide. Nebraska thus far has not decided to do that. So this is the way, this may be a little easier to understand what I mean. You've got some people that are currently eligible for Medicaid, you've got other people that can go into the health insurance marketplace, and then you have around 54,000 or so people that are in the middle. These are the lowest income individuals. So the people that have the least ability to actually afford coverage. And, as I look at this, that doesn't make sense. If you're going to reform our healthcare system, one element of it, in my estimation, is making sure everybody is on the bus. Everybody has coverage and a way to see someone. And when you leave out a big chunk of people, these folks they're going to continue to access healthcare through bad means like emergency room use, or they're going to wait until they're really sick and then go seek care, and it's going to cost a lot more and maybe endanger their life. So one thing we can do is make healthcare make sense and close this coverage gap. It would help ensure a healthier workforce by allowing folks to get preventative care, getting treatment for chronic diseases. There are at least 54,000 people in our state that are going to not have an avenue to coverage without this. One estimate is that it would save around 500 lives per year just in Nebraska. And it would bring billions of dollars back into our state that we're not otherwise going to get. I don't want to spend too much time on this last element, but something a lot of people I don't think realize, the way the Affordable Care Act was structured is there were a lot of tax changes and offsets put into place to pay for it. And so their tax dollars are coming out of all of our pockets to pay for these folks on Medicaid. But we only pull those dollars back into our state if we close the coverage gap and take this up. So by not doing it, it's not as if we're saving any money. That money is coming out of our pockets. It's just going to Iowa and Arkansas and Colorado and the other states that have expanded coverage. So it's the right thing to do for people. It's also the right thing to do fiscally to bring these dollars back and invest them in our state and our communities. The last area I want to talk about are economically stable families. Too often, because of low wages and other factors, folks just can't afford the basic building blocks of what they need to get by. And when that happens, you have people that end up turning to public assistance programs because often they don't really have a choice. You can see here we have nearly 70,000 folks in our state that are low income, and 30,000 people that spend more than 1/3 of what they get every month on housing. Mm-hmm. When you're in that position, you're, in my estimation, forced to look to public assistance programs, and I'm going to talk about a couple of those to try and get by. One of those is the Child Care Subsidy Program. I'm not sure how familiar people are with this program, but essentially it is a way for low-income folks to be able to get help paying for the cost of child care so that they can look for work, go to school, or get a job. So it's really important to allow people to actually, find a job or maintain employment, to give them some help paying for the cost of childcare, because childcare is extremely expensive. So this is a program to help some individuals defray the cost of that. The eligibility limit is about 130% of poverty. That's about $2,000 a month for a family of 3. So eligibility is fairly low. That's not an awful lot of money every month. The other program that I want to talk about briefly is probably one people are more familiar with, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance, SNAP, or Food Stamp program. It's a program to help folks buy nutritious food. It's no longer a stamp, as you probably know. It's an EBT card. It's like a credit card. You use it the same way in places that accept it. And the income limit for that program is also 130%. So again, about $2,000 a month. Unfortunately, the way the state has structured eligibility for these programs can actually undermine people working or getting a new job or getting a raise. I think Ms. Mancuso may have discussed this a little bit earlier, but this is something we refer to as the cliff effect, where a modest increase in your income or a new job will mean you lose this support. So you can have a 25-cent increase in your hourly wage. That can mean you lose both your child care assistance and SNAP. Mm-hmm. But that 25 cents doesn't equal out to the child care you had or the food assistance you had. So you have people that that are working hard, they're trying to get ahead, they get a new job, they get a raise, and they fall off this eligibility cliff, and they take one step forward, two steps back. This is a choice that the state can make. The program doesn't have to be designed this way. And so what we would suggest is, reward work and address the cliff effect. You can do this in a couple of ways, but essentially the concept is to make it a more transitional program, where maybe you walk in the door at a limit of $2,000 per month, but once you're through the door, let's bump that up to $3,000 per month if you get a raise or you get a new job, so that you're incentivizing work and not having people fall off the cliff. Similarly with SNAP, you can raise the gross income threshold and have more people getting through who have increased their earnings over time. So it's something that I think is resonating a bit more in our legislature than it has in the past. And that's what I guess I want to emphasize about the three areas I just talked about: the minimum wage, closing the coverage gap, addressing the cliff effect. These are all policy decisions that can be made by our state legislators. Some of these can even be made by the executive branch through the Department of Health and Human Services. But they are things that can be changed. They're not set. They're choices that we make as a state. And so these things are things Appleseed is advocating for to change and improve, and things that all of you can be a part of in trying to improve these programs. And so that's really what I want to end on, are some of the things that you can do. One thing is to stay on top of what's happening. I believe there will be legislation this year on possibly everything I just described. I think there will be minimum wage, I think there will be a Medicaid bill, and I think there will be a bill around SNAP and childcare. So if you're interested in these things, you can stay engaged, you can sign up for our email alerts. We'll tell you what bills are out there, what we're looking at, when they hit the floor, when the hearing is, when you can actually be engaged in the process. Another thing you can do is volunteer. We're always looking for volunteers to help in different ways. Some of those are just organizing yourselves to go out and talk about these issues. Some of it is a phone bank. Has anyone ever done a phone bank? You know what I'm talking about? Some folks. It's basically where we get a bunch of computers and a bunch of phones, and we have lists of people to call, and you call someone and say, hey, I'm calling on behalf of whatever group you're with, and we're seeing if you'd like to support a change to the minimum wage. Would you like to do that? They say yes. You press a button, and they're automatically transferred to their senator. It's very easy, and I think very effective. The other thing you can always do is to write or call your senator. And I'm of the mind that this makes a big difference. I think sometimes folks think they're not going to listen to me, why would they care? But if you're their constituent, if they get 5-6 calls from a constituent about something, that's meaningful to them. And so never underestimate the power of contacting your representative. The other way is to engage with the media in a public way. Writing a letter to the editor or an op-ed it's a very easy way to express your opinion. And I can tell you, senators' offices read these. I don't know if you do. I kind of wonder if regular people actually say, I'm going to read the letter to the editor column, but policymakers do. And so I think it makes a difference. And the last thing I would say is sharing stories. This is constantly what we hear, is the need to. I shared a lot of data with you, but these are people we're talking about. These are individuals. And we always need that individual who has that story to say, hey, I fall in the coverage gap. I need health care. I can't get it. And having that person talk to their legislator, talk to a reporter, that is extremely powerful, and it's something that we're always trying to find and keep our eyes up for. And for some of these issues, these probably are people that you know, because these issues affect so many people. So, as I said, these are the ways you can get involved, and I believe you will see several bills over the next few months where you could actually engage on one thing or So that's what I have.
Thanks, James. Now we're going to have about 15 minutes of small table conversation. And again, each table has a facilitator. The question that you're going to chew on a bit, and if you brought paper, this is, and haven't been writing, this might be the time that you really start thinking concretely about what you might take away for either your church group or organization that you represent. And the question is, what might you take back and explore with your faith community or group? What might you take back? And specificity at this point is a helpful thing. It doesn't help me if I just say, well, I'm just going to make more people aware of all of this at my church. So we've been inundated with lots of good information. So this is your chance to just kind of hear from others and hear yourself speak about what you might be able to take back to your community or group.